Part 1. The Setup. The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 in the morning, just like it had every day for the past 3 months. Maya rolled over in her tiny bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of her studio apartment. The paint was peeling near the window, and she could hear Mrs. Chen next door already starting her morning routine. Maya's feet hit the cold floor and she winced. After working 12-hour shifts at the Grandview Country Club, her feet never stopped hurting. She shuffled to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of too many late nights and too much worry. Her long black hair was pulled back in the same ponytail she wore every day to work. Maya splashed cold water on her face and tried to wake up. Another day of serving rich people who looked right through her was waiting. Maya had never planned to be a waitress. Just 2 years ago, she was graduating from the music conservatory with the highest honors in her class. She remembered that day so clearly. Her mother had been in the front row, clapping and crying with pride. Maya had worn a beautiful black dress and walked across the stage to receive her diploma in piano performance. Everyone said she had a bright future ahead of her. But life had other plans. 3 months after graduation, her mother got sick. Really sick. The doctor said it was cancer and the treatments were expensive. Very expensive. Maya had looked at the medical bills and felt her heart sink. The numbers were so big they didn't even seem real. Her mother needed surgery, chemotherapy, and months of special care. Their small savings disappeared in the first week. Maya had tried to find work as a piano teacher or performer, but those jobs paid very little. She needed money fast, and she needed a lot of it. That's how she ended up at the Grandview Country Club, carrying trays and serving drinks to people who spent more on one dinner than she made in a month. The country club was like stepping into another world. Everything was perfect and expensive. The floors were made of real marble that shined like mirrors. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, throwing little rainbows across the walls when the light hit them just right. The furniture looked like it belonged in a palace, all dark wood and soft leather. The members were just as polished as their surroundings. The women wore jewelry that probably cost more than Maya's apartment rent for a year. Their hair was always perfect, their makeup flawless, their clothes pressed and fitted just right. The men walked around in expensive suits talking loudly about business deals and golf games. They had the kind of confidence that came from never worrying about money. Maya had learned to be invisible around them. She would glide between the IDR tables, refilling water glasses and bringing fresh bread, but they rarely looked at her. To them, she was just part of the background, like the paintings on the walls or the flowers in the vases. Sometimes she would stand right next to someone for a full minute, waiting to take their order, and they would keep talking as if she wasn't there. At first, it had hurt her feelings. Maya was used to being noticed. In school, she had been the star student. Professors praised her playing. Other students looked up to her. She had felt important and valued. But here, she was nobody special, just another worker in a black uniform and white apron. The other staff members were kind to her, though. There was Roberto, the head chef, who always made sure she got a good meal during her break. He was from Guatemala and had been working at the club for 15 years. Roberto told her stories about the crazy things he had seen rich people do, and they would laugh together in the kitchen. There was also Linda, an older woman who had been a server for 20 years. Linda knew all the members by name and could predict what they would order before they even sat down. She had taught Maya the tricks of the trade: how to balance 4 plates on one arm, how to open a wine bottle without making noise, and most importantly, how to smile even when people were rude to you. The secret, Linda had told her on her first day, is to remember that this is just temporary. You're here for a reason, and when that reason is gone, you can leave. But while you're here, do the job right and keep your dignity. Maya thought about those words every day as she tied her apron and pinned her name tag to her uniform. She was here for her mother, and that made all the invisible moments worth it. But there was one thing at the country club that made Maya's heart ache every single day. In the main dining room, right by the big windows that looked out over the golf course, sat a beautiful grand piano. It was black and shiny, with ivory keys that looked like they had barely been touched. Maya had never seen anyone play it in, All the months she had worked there, sometimes during quiet moments between serving tables, Maya would find herself staring at that piano. Her fingers would move slightly, as if they were remembering the feel of the keys. She knew that piano was probably worth more than she would make in 5 years of waitressing, but she couldn't help imagining what it would feel like to sit at that bench and play. Maya had started playing piano when she was 6 years old. Her mother had found an old keyboard at a garage sale and brought it home. It only had half the keys working, and it was missing a leg, so they had to prop it up with books. But Maya had loved it immediately. She would spend hours figuring out melodies, making up little songs, and dreaming of playing a real piano someday. When she was 10, her school music teacher heard her playing during recess and was amazed. The teacher convinced Maya's mother to let her take real piano lessons. Even though money was tight, Maya's mother worked 2 jobs to pay for those lessons, and Maya never forgot that sacrifice. Throughout middle school and high school, Maya had been the pianist for every school concert, every talent show, every graduation ceremony. She won competitions and earned scholarships. Music was not just something she did, it was who she was. The piano was like an extension of her own body. When she played, she could express feelings that words could never capture. At the conservatory, Maya had learned to play the most difficult pieces ever written. She had studied the great composers and learned about music theory and history. Her professors had said she had a rare gift, a natural understanding of music that couldn't be taught. They had encouraged her to audition for orchestras and apply for fellowships to study in Europe. But now all of that felt like a lifetime ago. Now Maya spent her days asking, "Would you like more coffee?" and "How would you like your steak cooked?" Her hands, which used to create beautiful music, now carried dirty dishes and wiped down tables. Every morning as she walked into the country club, Maya would glance at that piano and feel a little piece of her heart break. She wondered if she would ever play again, really play, not just picking out melodies on her old keyboard late at night when she got home from work. The members of the country club had no idea that their invisible waitress had once been a rising star in the music world. They didn't know that she could play Chopin better than most professional pianists, or that she had memorized hundreds of pieces. To them, she was just the girl who brought their drinks and cleared their plates. Maya had learned to live with this invisible feeling, but it wasn't easy. Sometimes she would overhear the members talking about concerts they had attended or musicians they had met, and she wanted to join the conversation. She wanted to tell them about the time she had played with the City Symphony, or about her favorite Beethoven sonata. But she knew that would only make them uncomfortable. Rich people didn't expect their servers to have opinions about classical music, so Maya kept quiet and did her job. She smiled when they were rude to her. She apologized when they complained about things that weren't her fault. She pretended not to hear when they made jokes about the help. She needed this job, and she couldn't afford to lose it by speaking. Up but late at night, when Maya finally made it home to her small apartment, she would sit at her old keyboard and play. Her neighbors never complained, even though the walls were thin. Maybe they could tell that the music she played was special, full of longing and hope and dreams that refused to die. Maya's mother was getting better, slowly but surely. The treatments were working, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic. Every medical bill that Maya paid with her tip money felt like a small victory. She was making a difference, even if no one at the country club knew it. But Maya couldn't help wondering what would happen when her mother was completely well again. Would she go back to music? Could she go back? Sometimes she worried that she had been away from performing for too long, that her skills had gotten rusty, that the music world had moved on without her. These were the thoughts that filled Maya's mind as she got ready for work each morning. Today felt different, though she couldn't say why. Maybe it was the way the sunlight was streaming through her window, or maybe it was the fact that her mother had sounded stronger on the phone last night. Whatever it was, Maya felt a little spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. As she walked to the bus stop, Maya looked up at the sky and made a quiet promise to herself. Someday, somehow, she would play piano again. Not just at home on her old keyboard, but really play, for people who would listen and appreciate the music. She didn't know when or how, but she believed it would happen. Part 2. The catalyst tonight was not just any ordinary evening at the Grandview Country Club. Tonight was the annual charity gala, the biggest event of the year. Maya had been preparing for this day for weeks, and she could feel the excitement and tension in the air as soon as she arrived for her shift. The main dining room had been transformed into something magical. Fresh flowers covered every table, white roses, purple orchids, and green ivy that seemed to glow under the soft lighting. The crystal chandeliers had been polished until they sparkled like diamonds. Round tables with crisp white tablecloths filled the room, each one set with the finest china and silverware the club owned. Maya had never seen the country club look so elegant. Even the piano seemed to shine brighter tonight, positioned perfectly in the corner where it could be seen. From every table, someone had placed a beautiful arrangement of white lilies on top of it, and Maya wondered if tonight would finally be the night someone would play it. The guest list for the charity gala read like a directory of the city's most powerful people. There were politicians, business owners, doctors, lawyers, and celebrities. Maya recognized some faces from the local newspaper and TV news. These weren't just rich people. These were the people who ran the city, who made decisions that affected thousands of lives. Mrs. Patterson, the event coordinator, had been running around all week making sure every detail was perfect. She was a tall, thin woman with silver hair always pulled back in a tight bun. Maya had never seen her smile, not once in 3 months. Mrs. Patterson took her job very seriously, and tonight was her chance to prove that the Grandview Country Club could host an event worthy of the city's elite. Everything must be perfect, Mrs. Patterson had told the staff during their morning meeting. These guests donate millions of dollars to charity every year, and they expect the very best service. One mistake could ruin our reputation forever. Maya felt the pressure. She had been assigned to serve the VIP section, where the most important guests would be sitting. This was both an honor and a challenge. The VIP guests were used to having their every need anticipated before they even knew what they wanted. As the guests began arriving at 6 o'clock, Maya took her position near the entrance to the main dining room. She watched as limousines and expensive cars dropped off women in stunning evening gowns and men in perfectly fitted tuxedos. The jewelry alone probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. The first few hours went smoothly. Maya served champagne and appetizers, refilled water glasses, and made sure everyone had what they needed. The guests were in good spirits, chatting and laughing as they enjoyed the elegant atmosphere. Maya moved between the tables like a ghost, efficient and invisible. Around 8 o'clock, Mrs. Patterson made an announcement that everyone had been waiting for. The evening's entertainment was about to begin. A famous pianist named Jonathan Blake would be performing a special concert for the guests. Maya had heard of him. He was well known throughout the country for his brilliant performances and had played with major symphonies around the world. Maya felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. She had always wondered what it would be like to hear a professional pianist play that beautiful grand piano. Maybe she could find a spot in the back of the room where she could listen for a few minutes without being noticed. But at 8:15, something went wrong. Maya was clearing plates from a corner table when she heard Mrs. Patterson's voice, sharp and worried, coming from the direction of the kitchen. She was talking rapidly on her phone, and even from across the room, Maya could tell something was seriously wrong. "What do you mean he's not feeling well?" Mrs. Patterson was saying into her phone. "He's supposed to perform in 15 minutes. Maya moved closer, pretending to arrange flowers on a nearby table while she listened. "Food poisoning? Are you absolutely certain?" Mrs. Patterson's voice was getting higher and more strained. "Well, can he still perform? No. No, of course not. Oh, my goodness, what are we going to do?" Maya's heart sank as she realized what was happening. Jonathan Blake, the famous pianist everyone had come to hear, was sick and wouldn't be able to perform. She looked around the room at all the expectant faces, the guests who had paid hundreds of dollars for their tickets, expecting to hear world-class music with their dinner. Mrs. Patterson hung up the phone and immediately started making more calls. Maya watched as she tried desperately to find a replacement, but it was Saturday night and most professional musicians already had commitments. Besides, Finding someone good enough to perform for this crowd on such short notice was nearly impossible. "Hello, this is Mrs. Patterson from the Grandview Country Club," Maya heard her say into the phone. "I know this is very last minute, but we have an emergency situation. Our pianist for tonight's gala has fallen ill, and we desperately need a replacement." Call after call resulted in the same answer. No one was available. Maya felt terrible for Mrs. Patterson. She could see the panic building in the woman's eyes as each phone call failed to produce a solution. The guests were starting to notice that something was wrong. They kept glancing toward the piano, checking their watches, and whispering to each other. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mrs. Patterson finally announced, her voice shaking slightly, "I'm afraid our featured performer has taken ill and will not be able to join us this evening. We are working on finding an alternative entertainment option and appreciate your patience." The reaction from the crowd was immediate and not pleasant. Maya heard grumbling and complaints from several tables. These people had paid good money for this event, and they expected what had been promised. Some guests started talking about leaving early, which would be a disaster for the charity that was supposed to benefit from the evening. Maya continued serving, but her heart was breaking as she watched Mrs. Patterson's growing desperation. The woman was now calling anyone she could think of: music teachers, church organists, even a teenager who gave piano lessons at the local music store. Nothing was working. That's when Maya heard something that made her stop in her tracks. "I don't care if he's only 16 and usually plays pop music," Mrs. Patterson was saying into her phone. "At this point, anyone who can play piano would be better than nothing." "What? He's at his prom tonight? Of course he is." Maya's hands were shaking as she set down the water pitcher she had been carrying. Mrs. Patterson was so desperate that she was willing to hire a teenager who played pop music to perform for some of the most sophisticated people in the city. That's when Maya realized that maybe, just maybe, this was her moment. For 3 months, Maya had watched that piano sit silent in the corner. For 3 months, she had dreamed of playing it just once. She had imagined how the keys would feel, under her fingers, how the sound would fill this beautiful room. But she had never thought it could actually happen. Now, watching Mrs. Patterson's panic and hearing the growing discontent from the guests, Maya felt something stirring inside her. It was terrifying and exciting at the same time. Could she really do this? Could she step out of her invisible role as a waitress and become a performer again? Maya thought about all the hours she had spent practicing, all the competitions she had won, all the times her professors had told her she had a gift. That gift was still inside her, even if she had been hiding it for months. She thought about her mother, who had sacrificed so much for Maya's music education. What would her mother say if she knew Maya had a chance to play again but was too scared to take it? The room was getting more restless by the minute. Maya could see some guests looking at their phones, probably calling for their drivers to pick them up early. The charity that was supposed to benefit from tonight's event would lose thousands of dollars if people started leaving. Mrs. Patterson was now standing by the piano, looking completely defeated. She had made her last phone call and had run out of options. Maya could see her trying to figure out how to announce to 300 disappointed guests that there would be no music tonight. That's when Maya made the decision that would change her life forever. She smoothed down her uniform, took a deep breath, and walked across the room toward Mrs. Patterson. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Her hands were sweating and her legs felt shaky. But she kept walking. "Excuse me, Mrs. Patterson," Maya said quietly when she reached the woman. Mrs. Patterson looked up, clearly annoyed at being interrupted during her crisis. "Yes, what is it? I'm very busy right now." Maya's mouth felt dry, but she forced herself to speak. "I couldn't help but overhear that you're looking for someone to play piano tonight." Mrs. Patterson's expression was impatient. "Yes, but unless you know a professional pianist who happens to be free on Saturday night, I don't see how you can help." Maya swallowed hard. This was it, the moment of truth. "Actually, I am a pianist. I graduated from the conservatory with honors and I've memorized hundreds of pieces. I could play for your guest tonight if you'd like." Mrs. Patterson stared at her for a long moment, as if Maya had just told her she could fly to the moon. Maya could see the woman's mind working. trying to process what she had just heard. A waitress offering to perform classical piano for the city's elite? It seemed impossible. Part 3. The moment of truth. Maya's hands were shaking as she quickly changed out of her waitress uniform in the staff locker room. Mrs. Patterson had found her a simple black dress that one of the other employees kept as a backup for special events. It was a bit loose on Maya's small frame, but it would have to do. She pulled her long black hair out of its ponytail and let it fall around her shoulders, then took a deep breath and looked at herself in the small mirror above the sink. The person, staring back at her, looked different. For 3 months she had seen herself as just a waitress, invisible, unimportant, forgettable. But now, in this simple black dress with her hair down, she could see traces of the confident musician she used to be. It was still there, buried, beneath months of serving tables and staying quiet. But it was there. Linda, the veteran server who had become like a mother to Maya, appeared in the doorway. She had heard what was happening through the staff grapevine, and her eyes were wide with amazement and concern. "Maya, honey, are you sure about this?" Linda asked, placing a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "That's a tough crowd out there. They're not used to. Well, they're not used to people like us being anything other than staff." Maya nodded, though her stomach was doing flips. "I know it's crazy, Linda, but I can do this. I know I can. I just need to remember who I used to be." Roberto, the head chef, had also heard the news and came to wish her luck. "You're brave, Maya," he said with his thick accent. "I've been watching you look at that piano every day for months. It's time." Maya felt a surge of gratitude for these people who had become her work family. They believed in her even when she wasn't sure she believed in herself. As Maya walked back toward the dining room, her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Through the doorway, she could see the guests at their tables, some checking their phones, others looking around impatiently. Mrs. Patterson was standing near the front of the room, clearly nervous about what was about to happen. Maya paused just outside the dining room, hidden behind a decorative column. This was her last chance to back out. She could tell Mrs. Patterson she had changed her mind, put her uniform back on, and go back to being invisible. No one would blame her. It would be the safe choice. But as she stood there, Maya thought about all the dreams she had put aside when her mother got sick. She thought about the countless hours she had spent practicing, the competitions she had won, the professors who had told her she had a rare gift. She thought about her mother, who had worked 2 jobs to pay for piano lessons because she believed in Maya's talent. Most of all, she thought about that beautiful grand piano sitting silent in the corner, waiting for someone to bring it to life. Maya straightened her shoulders and walked into the dining room. The conversations didn't stop immediately. Most of the guests were still focused on their own tables, their own discussions. But Mrs. Patterson saw her coming and quickly moved to the front of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mrs. Patterson announced, her voice carrying across the large space. "I'm pleased to announce that we do have musical entertainment for you this evening after all." The room began to quiet as people turned their attention toward the front. Maya could feel hundreds of eyes on her as she walked across the marble floor toward the piano. The walk seemed to take forever. Each step echoed in the large room, and Maya was acutely aware of every sound. The rustle of her dress, the soft click of her shoes on the floor, the whispers that were starting to follow. "Her path. A waitress?" she heard someone whisper from a nearby table. "They're having a waitress perform for us?" "This is ridiculous," came another voice. "I paid $500 for this ticket." Maya felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept walking. She could see some guests openly staring at her with confusion and disdain. Others were shaking their heads and reaching for their phones, probably to call their drivers. When Maya reached the piano, she stood beside it for a moment, looking out at the sea of faces. Some looked curious, others skeptical, and many just looked annoyed. These were people who were used to world-class entertainment. They had probably heard some of the finest musicians in the world perform. What was a waitress from a small conservatory going to offer them? Maya pulled out the piano bench and sat down. The bench was exactly the right height, and for the first time in months she felt like she was in the right place. She placed her hands on the keys but didn't press them yet. The keys felt cool and smooth under her fingers, exactly as she had imagined they would. She looked out at the audience one more time. Mrs. Patterson was standing off to the side, her face pale with worry. The guests were settling into an expectant quiet, though Maya could tell many of them were prepared to be disappointed. Maya closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She thought about all the times she had sat at a piano bench before, in practice, rooms at the conservatory, on stage at competitions, in her childhood living room with her mother sitting proudly nearby. This moment felt different from all of those, but it also felt familiar. This was who she was. This was what she was meant to do. She opened her eyes and began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major rang out clear and pure in the silent room. Maya had chosen this piece carefully. It was beautiful and recognizable, something that would appeal to this sophisticated audience. But more than that, it was a piece that felt like home to her. She had performed it at her conservatory graduation, and it held all of her hopes and dreams for the future. The opening melody was soft and lyrical, like a conversation between old friends. Maya's fingers moved across the keys with the muscle, memory of thousands of hours of practice. As she played, she felt herself transforming. The nervous waitress who had walked across the room was disappearing, replaced by the confident musician she had always been inside. Maya could sense the change in the room's atmosphere, even with her eyes closed. The restless shuffling and whispered conversations had stopped. She could feel the audience's attention focusing on the music, on her, in a way that was completely different from how they had looked at her when she was serving their dinner. As the piece continued, Maya felt herself getting lost in the music. Her technique was flawless. Years of training had made sure of that. But more than technique, she was playing with emotion, with a depth of feeling that came from having lived through real hardship and real sacrifice. Every note carried the weight of her experiences over the past few months, the worry about her mother, the exhaustion from working double shifts, the loneliness of being invisible in a room full of people. But the music also carried hope. Hope for her mother's recovery, hope for her own future, hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find her way back to the life she had always dreamed of living. The Nocturne's middle section was more complex, with flowing passages that required both hands to work in perfect coordination. Maya's left hand played a steady, comforting bass line while her right hand sang out the melody. She could feel the piano responding to her touch, the instrument coming alive under her fingers after months of silence. As she moved into the final section of the piece, Maya allowed herself to glance up at the audience. What she saw took her breath away. The same people who had been whispering and checking their phones were now sitting in complete silence, their faces focused intently on her performance. She could see genuine surprise and appreciation in their expressions. Mrs. Patterson was standing, with her mouth slightly open, clearly amazed by what she was hearing. Some of the other staff members had gathered in the doorways to listen, including Linda and Roberto, who were beaming with pride. But it was more than just surprise on the faces in the audience. Maya could see that the music was actually moving them. A woman at one of the front tables had tears in her eyes. An elderly man was nodding along with the rhythm, clearly recognizing and appreciating the piece. Even the most stern-looking guests seemed to have softened, drawn in by the beauty of the music. Maya felt a surge of confidence as she approached the ending of the Nocturne. This was working. Not only was she not embarrassing herself, but she was actually succeeding. The audience was with her, carried along by the music she was creating. The final notes of the Chopin piece faded into silence, and for a moment, the room remained completely quiet. Maya kept her hands on the keys, unsure of what would happen next. Had she done enough? Should she stop now while she was ahead? Then the applause began. It started with one person, then two, then spread across the room like a wave. But this wasn't polite, obligatory applause. This was genuine appreciation, the kind of response that professional musicians worked their entire careers to achieve. Maya looked up to see people actually smiling at her, nodding their approval, some even calling out, "beautiful" and "wonderful." But Maya wasn't finished yet. Without pausing, she moved directly into her next piece, Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most beloved and challenging pieces in the classical repertoire. She had chosen this piece because she knew it would be familiar to many people in the audience, but also because it would demonstrate her technical abilities in a way that left no doubt about her qualifications as a serious musician. The opening. Chords of the Rachmaninoff were bold and dramatic, filling the room with rich. Part 4. The Transformation. The applause that erupted when Maya finished the Rachmaninoff was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't just clapping. It was thunderous, sustained, and filled with genuine emotion. People were jumping to their feet, shouting, "Bravo," and "Encore," with voices full of amazement and appreciation. Maya sat at the piano bench, her hands still resting on the keys, hardly able to believe what was happening. The same people who had looked right through her for 3 months, who had treated her like part of the furniture, were now giving her a standing ovation that seemed to shake the crystal chandeliers hanging above them. She looked out at the faces in the crowd and saw something she had never seen before in this room. They were looking at her, really looking at her. Not past her, not around her, but directly at her with respect and admiration. For the first time since she had started working at the country club, Maya felt truly seen. Mrs. Patterson was standing near the front of the room with tears streaming down her face. The usually stern woman was clapping so hard her hands must have been hurting, and she was beaming with a mixture of relief and pure joy. Maya could see her mouthing "thank you" over and over again. In the back of the room, Linda and Roberta were practically glowing with pride. They had believed in Maya, when she didn't even believe in herself, and now they were witnessing her moment of triumph. Other staff members had gathered in the doorways, drawn by the incredible music and the audience's enthusiastic response. But it was the guests themselves who amazed Maya the most. These were people who attended world-class concerts regularly, who had heard some of the finest musicians on the planet perform. They were not easily impressed, and they certainly weren't accustomed to being surprised by their service staff. Yet here they were, on their feet, applauding with genuine enthusiasm for a waitress who had just revealed herself to be an extraordinary musician. Maya slowly stood up from the piano bench, still overwhelmed by the response. As she rose, the applause grew even louder. Someone in the back shouted more, and soon the entire room was chanting for an encore. Maya had never imagined this moment, had never dared to dream that she would receive this kind of reception from this kind of audience. She looked around the room, taking in every face, every smile, every pair of hands clapping for her. This was what she had missed during her months of invisibility, the connection between performer and audience, the magical moment when music brings people together regardless of their differences. Maya knew she had to play more. The audience was asking for it, and she could feel that this moment was about more than just one performance. This was her chance to reclaim her identity as a musician, to prove to herself and to the world that her talent was real and valuable. She sat back down at the piano, and the room immediately quieted in anticipation. Maya placed her hands on the keys and began to play Debussy's Clair de Lune, one of the most beautiful and beloved pieces ever written for piano. She chose this piece because it was like a conversation with the audience, intimate and personal, a way of saying thank you for their unexpected acceptance and appreciation. The opening notes floated through the room like moonlight itself, soft and ethereal and completely captivating. Maya played with every ounce of emotion she possessed, pouring months of hidden feelings into the music. All the loneliness, all the worry about her mother, all the dreams she had put aside came flowing out through her fingers and into the piano keys. As she played, Maya noticed something wonderful happening in the room. The guests weren't just listening politely anymore. They were truly engaged with the music. She could see people closing their eyes, letting the beautiful melody wash over them. Some were swaying slightly with the rhythm. Others had peaceful, almost meditative expressions on their faces. This was what music was supposed to do, Maya realized. It was supposed to break down barriers, to connect people to something bigger than themselves, to remind them of their shared humanity. In this moment, it didn't matter that she was a waitress and they were wealthy socialites. The music made them equals, all of them experiencing the same beautiful sounds, all of them moved by the same emotions. When Claire de Lune came to its gentle conclusion, the applause was different again. It was softer, more reverent, but no, less appreciative. Maya could see that many people in the audience had been genuinely moved by the performance. Some had tears in their eyes, and others looked like they had just woken up from a beautiful dream. Maya stood again, and this time, she spoke to the audience for the first time. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent room. "Thank you for giving me this chance, and thank you for listening with such open hearts." The response was immediate and warm. More applause, more calls of bravo, and several people shouting "thank you" back to her. Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest that she hadn't felt in months, the feeling of being appreciated, not just for what she could do for others, but for who she truly was. But the evening wasn't over yet. Maya could see that many people in the audience wanted to talk to her, to learn more about this surprising musician who had been hiding among their service staff. As she moved away from the piano, guests began approaching her with genuine curiosity and respect. "That was absolutely magnificent," said an elegant woman in a silver evening gown. "I had no idea we had such talent right here at the club. Where did you study?" "The conservatory," Maya replied, still somewhat in shock that someone was actually asking her questions about her background. "I graduated 2 years ago with honors in piano performance." 2 years ago? The woman looked confused. "But you're working as a waitress here. Why aren't you performing professionally?" Maya felt a brief moment of shame about her circumstances, but then she realized she had nothing to be ashamed of. "My mother got sick and needed expensive medical treatment. I needed a job that paid well immediately, so I could help with her medical bills." The woman's expression softened with understanding and respect. "That's incredibly noble of you. Your mother must be very proud." "She is," Maya said, feeling a surge of love for her mother. "She's the one who sacrificed to pay for my music lessons when I was growing up. Everything I am as a musician I owe to her." More people approached, each with compliments and questions. Maya found herself in conversation after conversation with guests who were genuinely interested in getting to know her as a person, not just as someone who served their food. It was surreal and wonderful, and completely overwhelming. Dr. Harrison, a prominent heart surgeon and longtime club member, shook Maya's hand warmly. "I've been coming to events here for 15 years, and I have never heard anything like that. You have extraordinary talent." "Thank you so much," Maya replied. "That means the world to me, especially coming from someone like you." "Someone like me?" Dr. Harrison looked puzzled. "Someone who clearly appreciates good music," Maya clarified. "I could tell from your reaction during the Rachmaninoff that you really understood what you were hearing." Dr. Harrison smiled. "My wife was a music teacher before she retired. She's going to be so sorry she missed this performance. Would you ever consider giving private concerts? We would love to have you play at our home sometime." Maya could hardly believe what she was hearing. A few hours ago she was invisible. Now distinguished guests were asking her to perform in their homes. It felt like a dream. But the warm handshakes and genuine smiles assured her it was really happening. Mr. Chen, a successful businessman who owned several restaurants in the city, approached with his wife. "We heard you mention that you're working to help with your mother's medical expenses," he said. "That's very admirable. If you're ever interested in teaching piano lessons, we have a daughter who's been looking for an advanced instructor. We would pay very well for someone with your obvious qualifications." Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes. These people weren't just complimenting her music. They were offering her opportunities, ways to use her talent to earn money while doing what she loved instead of hiding what she was capable of. Mrs. Patterson appeared at Maya's side, looking happier than Maya had ever seen her. "Maya, I owe you an enormous apology," she said. "I had no idea about your background and your incredible talent. You saved this entire event, and I will never forget what you did tonight." "You don't need to apologize," Maya replied. You gave me a chance when you had every reason to say no. I'm grateful for that. Well, I hope you'll consider letting us feature you at future events, Mrs. Patterson continued. I think our members would love to hear you play again. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, many stopped to thank Maya one more time or to slip her their business cards with offers of teaching positions, performance opportunities, or simply invitations to dinner parties where she would be welcomed as a guest, not as staff. Maya found herself holding a small stack of business cards and feeling completely overwhelmed by the sudden change in her circumstances. When she had woken up that morning, she was just a waitress trying to make enough money to pay her mother's medical bills. Now, she was a musician again, with new opportunities opening up before her and people who wanted to help her succeed. But perhaps the most important transformation wasn't in how others saw her. Part 5. The recognition. Maya barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear the thunderous applause echoing in her mind and see the amazed faces of the guests who had discovered her hidden talent. She kept touching the business cards in her purse, making sure they were really there, that the whole evening hadn't been just an incredibly vivid dream. When she finally gave up on sleep around 5 in the morning, Maya called her mother. Despite the early hour, her mother picked up immediately. The treatments had been making it hard for her to sleep through the night anyway. Maya? Is everything okay, honey? Her mother asked, her voice thick with sleep and concern. Mom, you're not going to believe what happened last night, Maya said, and then she told her mother everything. She described the emergency with the sick pianist, her terrifying decision to volunteer, the moment she sat down at the beautiful grand piano, and the incredible response from the audience. By the time Maya finished her story, both she and her mother were crying. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart, her mother said through her tears. I knew this day would come. I knew you would find your way back to music. You were meant to share your gift with the world. I was so scared, Mom. I thought I had lost it. Thought maybe I wasn't good enough anymore. Oh, my dear girl, her mother said softly. Talent like yours doesn't just disappear. It was always there, waiting for the right moment. And look what happened when you were brave enough to trust it. They talked for another hour, with Maya's mother asking for every detail about the performance and the guests' reactions. It felt wonderful to share this triumph with the person who had sacrificed so much to make Maya's musical education possible. When Maya arrived at the country club later that morning for what she thought would be her regular shift, she was surprised to find Mrs. Patterson waiting for her in the staff entrance. Maya, I'm so glad you're here, Mrs. Patterson said, looking more relaxed and happy than Maya had ever seen her. Could you come to my office for a moment? There are some people who would like to meet you. Maya followed Mrs. Patterson through the hallways she knew so well. But today everything felt different. Other staff members she passed smiled at her with new warmth and respect. Word of her performance had spread quickly through the club's employee network, and everyone was talking about how their quiet colleague had shocked the elite crowd with her incredible talent. When they reached Mrs. Patterson's office, Maya was surprised to see several people waiting inside. She recognized Mr. Williams, the club's general manager, and Dr. Harrison, the heart surgeon who had complimented her performance the night before. But there was also a distinguished older gentleman she didn't recognize, wearing an expensive suit and holding a briefcase. Maya, I'd like you to meet Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Patterson said. He's one of our most prominent members and also happens to be on the board of the City Arts Foundation. Mr. Thompson stood and extended his hand to Maya with a warm smile. It's an honor to meet you, Maya. I've been hearing incredible things about your performance last night. I'm only sorry I missed it. Thank you, sir, Maya replied, shaking his hand and wondering why all these important people wanted to meet with her. Please sit down, Mr. Thompson said, gesturing to a chair. I have a proposition for you that I think you'll find very interesting. Maya sat down, her heart beginning to race. She had no idea what was coming, but she could tell it was something significant. Mr. Thompson opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. Last night, after hearing about your performance from several attendees, I made some phone calls. I contacted the director of the Vienna International Music Academy. Perhaps you've heard of it? Maya's eyes widened. The Vienna International Music Academy was one of the most prestigious music schools in the world. Only the most exceptional musicians were accepted there. I have, Maya said quietly. It's one of the best conservatories in Europe. Indeed, it is, Mr. Thompson continued. I described your background and your performance to the director, Professor Muller. He was very intrigued, especially when I told him about your conservatory graduation with honors and your current circumstances. Maya felt like she might faint. Why was Mr. Thompson talking to prestigious music schools about her? Professor Muller would like to offer you a full scholarship to study with him in Vienna for 2 years, Mr. Thompson said, watching Maya's face carefully. This would include tuition, housing, living expenses, and private lessons with some of the finest piano instructors in the world. Maya stared at him in complete shock. A full scholarship to Vienna? It was beyond anything she had ever dared to dream, even in her most optimistic moments. But that's not all, Mr. Thompson continued. The foundation has also arranged for a recording contract with Classical Music International. They want to produce an album of your performances which would be distributed worldwide. Maya's hands were shaking. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to waitresses from small conservatories. This was the kind of opportunity that launched international careers. I don't understand, Maya stammered. How is this possible? I'm nobody special. I'm just a waitress who happens to play piano. Dr. Harrison leaned forward. Maya, you're not just a waitress who happens to play piano. You're an extraordinary musician who has been temporarily working as a waitress. There's a big difference. What you did last night, Mr. Thompson added, was remarkable not just because of your technical skill, but because of the emotion and maturity you brought to the music. Professor Muller said he could hear all of that just from the recordings that people made on their phones. Maya's mind was reeling. Recordings? People recorded my performance? Mrs. Patterson smiled. Several guests recorded parts of your performance and shared them online. By this morning, the videos had been viewed thousands of times. The comments are overwhelmingly positive. People are calling it one of the most moving performances they've ever heard. But there's one more thing, Mr. Thompson said, and Maya couldn't imagine what else there could possibly be. The foundation has also arranged to cover all of your mother's remaining medical expenses. We want to make sure you can focus on your music without worrying about anything else. Maya felt the tears starting to flow before she could stop them. This was too much, too wonderful, too overwhelming. 6 months ago, she had been a rising star in the music world. Then her mother got sick, and Maya had put her dreams aside to take care of the person who had always taken care of her. She had accepted that her musical career might be over before it really began. Now, in the span of 12 hours, everything had changed. Not only was her musical career back on track, but it was being launched into a stratosphere she had never even imagined reaching. Why? Maya asked through her tears. Why are you doing all this for me? Mr. Thompson's expression grew thoughtful. Because talent like yours is rare and it deserves to be nurtured and shared with the world. But more than that, because of the courage you showed last night. You risked everything to help save an event for people who barely knew you existed. That kind of character, combined with your extraordinary musical gifts, is what the world needs more of. Dr. Harrison nodded in agreement. And because you're a young woman who clearly understands the value of sacrifice and family, the way you put your dreams aside to care for your mother shows the kind of person you are. The music world needs more artists with that kind of integrity. Maya looked around the room at these successful, important people who were offering to change her life completely. It felt surreal, like she might wake up at any moment and find herself back in her small apartment, getting ready for another shift serving people who didn't see her. What about my job here? Maya asked. I can't just leave Mrs. Patterson without notice. Mrs. Patterson laughed, a warm, genuine sound that Maya had never heard from her before. Maya, honey, I'm not going to stand in the way of an opportunity like this. We'll manage just fine without you. Besides, I have a feeling this won't be the last time we see you perform at the club. The scholarship would begin in the fall, Mr. Thompson explained. That gives you a few months to prepare and to spend time with your mother while she finishes her treatment. Maya wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. I don't know what to say. This is the most incredible thing that has ever happened to me. Say yes, Dr. Harrison said with a smile. Say yes to the adventure, yes to the opportunity, and yes to sharing your gift with the world. Maya took a deep breath and looked around the room one more time. These people believed in her talent and her potential in a way that she was just beginning to believe in herself again. Yes, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. Yes to all of it. And thank you. Thank you for seeing something in me that I had almost forgotten was there. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Maya gave her notice at the country club, though she agreed to perform at one more special event before she left. She started taking refresher lessons with her old conservatory professor to prepare for studying in Vienna. She spent precious time with her mother, who was responding beautifully to treatment and was absolutely glowing with pride about Maya's opportunities.